What is going on, guys? Welcome to a special best ball edition, RotoGrinders. A little best ball crossover. We're bringing you a draft from one of our new partners in the best ball space, Drafters Fantasy, drafters.com, and they are running one of the tournaments that I'm most excited about. I obviously am your host, Erik Beimfohr. If you do not know me, you can find me on Twitter at Erik Beimfohr. I run our best ball product here kind of at the RG network. It's called Spike Week. And so if you have followed me at all, you've probably seen me draft way too many best ball teams already over the course of this year. But we are working with drafters on a little best ball crossover with RotoGrinders. And as you can see on the screen, I have already signed up for their $20, I guess I should say $1 million NFL best ball championship. You see it here at the top of the screen on drafters.com. It is $20 to enter with $250,000 to first place. Looks like we need just one more person to fill this tournament. It is 11 out of 12. And you can also see here, we're just going to cut straight to it. The best thing for us, best ball players and DFS players, is this puppy looks like it's really going to overlay. So there's only been 22,441 entries out of 55,000. So we need 30,000 more people to fill this thing in 2 weeks. So that's why we're bringing it here. We obviously have promo code Grinders or promo code Spike, whichever you prefer, to get 100% deposit bonus on any deposit on drafters up to $100. And so you can pile some entries into this thing. I don't think it's going to come really particularly close to filling here over these last 2 weeks. So this is really, if you're getting into the best ball space, or if you've been playing it like me for quite a while, I think this is probably the most plus EV investment you can make in best ball. You're going to put $20 in, and you're going to have, that's going to instantly be much more valuable than putting $20 into something that is going to pretty much fill across some of the other sites that exist. The cool thing about drafters is it's a little bit different than some of the other best ball platforms that exist. You may have played already on Underdog Fantasy or DraftKings or even something like FFPC. Drafters is much simpler, pretty straightforward. And you see the draft fills here. But drafters is you'll participate in 20 round drafts, full point PPR on this site. Not quite DraftKings scoring. There's no yardage bonuses or anything like that. But you will really, the entire goal is just to score as many possible points as you can. Call it cumulative scoring from week 1 to week 17 out of the 30-something thousand people that draft into this tournament, right? We draft in 12-man leagues, 12-team leagues, and you got to finish first, score the most points over the course of regular season. Obviously, it is best ball, so the site is calculating the scoring for you. You're drafting 20 players. Your starting lineup is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. And so you get 20 and a flex, and you get 20 roster spots to fill out that lineup every single week. So it's a really straightforward, which makes it a little bit easier too, as Harbs is here in the chat saying he might have to pump in 150 of these over the course of this next week or week and a half. I'm starting to feel the exact same. As you can see, it actually shows you how many entries you have in here. So I'm here drafting onto the 9 spot. I've drafted 26 of these. Sitting next to me, we got some grinders in here for sure. Holly Wizzle, this is 149 varying degrees of amount of teams people have drafted. But I totally agree kind of with Harbs' sentiment that there just aren't a lot of opportunities like this in best ball, really. If you play on Underdog or even on DraftKings, these tournaments are filling up so fast. And there's really not a lot of overlay possibilities. And this is the one space. And I mean, it's $1 million prize pool. It's not like it's something that's overlaying for kind of peanuts, right? And with the cumulative scoring format that exists here on drafters, it's like, I don't want to say it's easier to kind of pump in those teams like Harbs was saying, but it is a much more straightforward process. Like, draft the best team, right? There's a bunch of different things we'll talk about as we draft here today to to help us do that. But there's, we don't have to worry about some of the playoff formats, like with Underdog, right? The big difference is with Underdog and with DraftKings, you make it through out of your 12-team league. You have to finish in the top 2 of your 12-team league, and then you need to keep advancing through the playoffs against other teams that advanced in those kind of 1-week scenarios. On Drafters, there's none of that. Week 1 counts the exact same as week 17, right? I just need to score the most freaking points over the course of the entire season. And so it's very, it's a very different strategy, a very different, there's a lot different ways to structure your teams, and you'll run into some of the guys that may be undervalued on other sites that are injured or maybe don't have a locked in week 1 role or suspended, like DeAndre Hopkins, those types of things. Those guys get a serious ding over here on Drafters because we really, really need every week to count for us. You can also see on my screen next to some of the player names and such, I have our Spike Week. It also shows on the screen Spike Week draft helper ready. At Spike Week, we developed what we call overlays, draft helper, but it overlays obviously onto the screen some statistics about the teams that I've drafted, the ADP I've gotten these players at, right? So you see I have a lot of Travis Kelce. See very high percentages of Travis Kelce, and I have no Derrick Henry. So you can kind of see as we go the exposure I have to these players, and I can talk about some of the other little nuances as we go. So we're definitely in a wide receiver heavy room when all the wide receivers are flying off the boards, and I'm going to make sure that I do not get boxed out of wide receiver here, and I'm going to take Davante Adams. Gotta love seeing these rooms with CeeDee Lamb going 8th overall. And there's Travis Kelce. But I'm even double checking as we go here. So what you will see also is, so I drafted Davante Adams. You'll see players get highlighted that are correlated with on the same team with Davante Adams. So you can kind of easily spot stacks with this overlay. And then obviously the exposure that I have to the player there and the percentages at the end. And then the ADP, which you'll under this ADP column, you will see once it starts to populate, like Saquon Barkley here. My average ADP on Saquon Barkley in this tournament is 23. And then the very first column is kind of something cool that we did where you can see different game stacks and correlations that you have throughout the course of the season. And so I've drafted Davante Adams, right? So you see Deebo Samuel has a 1 here. Ironically enough, they play in week 17, but you'll be able to see how many times kind of players, play each other and such throughout the course of the year. I am going to take anyone that knows me knows how much of a wide receiver guy I am. And I'm going to take Tyreek Hill. I just recently actually wrote an article about, it's titled What If Scenarios That Could Break 2022 Fantasy Football. And going through the process of doing that has actually gotten me really a lot more bullish on both Tyreek Hill himself and the Dolphins in general. You can go read the full thing. It's totally free at Spike Week. It talked about 3 specific scenarios, I think, that could play out that would really shake up what fantasy football kind of appears to be, right? And the big thing, it's just funny that Harbs asked this because it's along these exact same lines. How do you think weighting season-long projections versus range of outcomes for each player should be balanced? And it's simultaneously the most important question in best ball and the most impossible one to answer, because obviously you don't want to just draft guys that so like Javonte Williams is actually one of my favorite players, but you'll hear people talk about the fact that if you just take a median projection for someone like Javonte, who is going to split work in the backfield, and maybe there's not like a ton of receiving volume for the backs, etc., that his median projection as a second round pick doesn't necessarily look incredibly strong, right? Compared to someone like who he goes around here in this draft. You see Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Saquon Barkley, even Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones probably have a better median projection than Javonte Williams. However, someone like Javonte Williams is the profile and archetype of a player that honestly really none of these other guys are. A second-year player who's young, has already kind of proven to be a really, really talented player. And there's also some other variables with Melvin Gordon that, they brought back, and the market is assuming in our season-long median projection that Melvin Gordon, it's just going to be the status quo of last year, right? Maybe 55-45 or even 60-40 weighted towards Javonte this year. But there are scenarios, as Harb says, like from a range of outcomes perspective, where Javonte does the Jonathan Taylor thing, right? And just takes over this backfield. Not 100%, of course. There really are no 100% snap players in the backfield anymore, but takes over a huge portion of this backfield. And that needs to go in your range of outcomes. And that's why he goes where he goes. I tend to side a lot more on the guys with the wide range of outcomes. I'm happy to select. I am happy to select, and it's funny now because now do I stack up the Dolphins? A little worried about Jalen Waddle's injury, to be totally honest, and I don't particularly like Nick Chubb, especially on a full point PPR site. What I am going to do is take a guy that I also don't take very frequently, but on a full point PPR site at this point in the draft, I'm taking Keenan Allen. We can maybe talk about Keenan and the Chargers a little bit later, but Javonte is that wide range of outcomes player, right? Everything could stay the same as last year, and it's like a 50-50 split, and he's just a meh guy. He probably isn't going to, he's almost certainly not going to pay off a second round value in just a straight split backfield with Melvin Gordon. But there's also just so much variance. My big takeaway, if I were to summarize, I talked about it for 5 minutes now, but if I were to summarize it into kind of one thing, is that we need to understand that there's so much that we don't know, and the chaos of the NFL season is going to just slap us in the face here in a couple of weeks, and teams are going to be better or worse than we think. Players are going to be better or worse, and players are going to get hurt. And those are the kinds of so here's a perfect example of a guy. I think I just want to double check. Where is, I'm actually going to take James Conner here, and he is the perfect example. Actually, both of these last two picks that I just made, of guys I would be willing to target at these costs on drafters specifically that I'm a little more skittish on say a site, if you've played best ball on a site like Underdog or on DraftKings, those would be what we'd call playoff format tournaments, right? You have to get to the playoffs, and you got to keep winning each week to advance through the playoffs. You make it to the final week of the regular season, and you have to perform in that week. It's hard. It's really hard for people like James Conner and aging wide receivers like Keenan Allen, who have had continual declines in just about any metric, from a yards per route run, targets per route run, everything. And has maybe an ascending Josh Palmer, right? And maybe still ascending Mike Williams. I don't know. Those players, because week 1 and week 5 and the early weeks are so much more valuable in this format, I'm willing to take James Conner here in the 4th round, right? We know how valuable this role can be in the Arizona offense, catching passes, scoring at the goal line, etc. I'm also personally really in on the Cardinals offense for fantasy, in part because, it's a really talented offense, even though Cliff Kingsbury may be a little bit of a dunce. But the defense for the Cardinals looks putrid. And so for my, you guys will hear me in a couple of weeks on the week 1 RotoGrinders DFS content, and I probably won't shut up about the Chiefs, because the Chiefs play the Cardinals in week 1, and I think the Chiefs might just hang like 50 on the Cardinals. But when your defense is terrible like that, and you do have a high-powered offense, and you play in the NFC West, with the Rams and the 49ers, and the NFC West plays the AFC West, which is Mahomes, right? Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, etc. You are going to have to be pushing and scoring a lot of points, which means a lot of catches for someone like James Conner, and hopefully the goal line touchdowns that we saw from James Conner last year. The problem on the other types of sites with playoff formats and such is that he's older. He has gotten hurt essentially every year, including last year when he got that big workload. And so there's a really big balancing act you have to do on these other sites versus this one where, if he gets hurt in week 12 or something, he can still pay off for me. I really don't like this spot. You guys have destroyed this wide receiver room, and it's really not very fun. I am just gonna go ahead and take my guy here, Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, one of my favorite young kind of second-year breakout wide receivers. We're in a wide receiver heavy room here for sure, and so I don't want to be too beholden to ADP or anything like that. I'm a little worried. I'm a lot worried about the Seahawks. The Seahawks offense, which has me lower on DK Metcalf. And while I'm, of course, worried about the Jets as well, I think the collection of talent and at least a little bit more potential upside exists for the Jets. Investing in the Jets has been about as successful of a venture as me trying to lose weight over the last couple of weeks. So that's probably not going to turn out well. But CJ, shout out CJ, just finished your 150. You have 150 in this tournament. That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, aren't you worried? Now I can't get that out of my head now. Anytime I think or say like I'm a little bit worried, because you just naturally say that, right, when you're like describing I'm worried about the Seahawks. I can't get it out of my head. For anyone that doesn't know, our good friend Mike Leone from Established the Run made an incredible tweet that was essentially saying, anytime someone says, "Aren't you worried?" the answer is, of course, yes. I'm very much worried about everything. So really like Drake London here to continue to. I can't believe I'm going to pass on Trey Lance though, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to pass on Trey Lance, which pains me. Anyone that knows me knows that Trey Lance is my guy. Was sadly my guy for fantasy last year. That worked out well. Also, sorry I missed this. Coach Leaves Couch is an incredible name, and yes, I know NS None from the Discord. So are you maxed out here? You didn't save. You don't have any left. You're maxed out here. Are you playing in the Superflex? So I'm drafting for anybody watching. We're double dipping drafters drafts today, and I'll be back on the Spike Week YouTube drafting in their Superflex tournament. Drafters launched a $5.55 Superflex tournament, which is pretty fun, I think. All they did from a lineup perspective was take out the regular flex and replace it with a Superflex. So I actually haven't done any of those drafts yet. Who is in here sending messages? This reminds me of old FanDuel chat. The fact that there's a chat box on drafters. But this is something that, it's kind of funny to call a 4th round running back like a hero running back, but it's one of my favorite structures for drafters, because I think particularly in full point PPR, right, we really want to find the upside of the superstar and breakout wide receivers. That's why you see, I did balance it out a little bit with someone like Keenan Allen and honestly Devontae and Tyreek. It's just like, give me that veteran production, and now let's find some breakouts. Elijah Moore, Drake London. I've gotten more and more bullish on Drake London, both from just listening to some other smart people kind of talk about Drake London, watching the one play or whatever he got, but he did look pretty good and has looked pretty good in camp. But really watching what the Falcons have done in the preseason. The entire narrative about the Falcons has basically been, this might be the worst team in the NFL. The offense is probably going to stink, right? Because it's Marcus Mariota and it's Desmond Ridder at quarterback. But I don't know. It's just the preseason. Most of it is meaningless. But seeing signs of life from them is making me a lot more I mean, doesn't take anything to make me more bullish on Kyle Pitts, but on Drake London specifically has me thinking, this is, and he's the most expensive one, but this is the rookie wide receiver that I really want to prioritize. I'm hoping he gets back to health. Justin just drafting out of the 2 spot. I'm sure he auto drafts. I know. Oh my God, that's a lot of running backs. You weren't kidding. We're gonna queue up Burrow here because I think that's an end. Yeah, he's the end of a quarterback tier for me. So we'll have to figure out a way to try to find a little stack here with Burrow. I don't know if Boyd is going to work. It's going to be a little early for Boyd here. I don't know if he'll come back. 108. Yeah, it should be timed up decently well for Boyd. Depends on if this room ever lets a wide receiver come back. Another thing about this format is I definitely want the stacks. You want stacks because the weekly spikes will be correlated for these players, right? If Joe Burrow and the seasonal, and because of that, in turn, the combination of the seasonal upsides will be put together, right? Joe Burrow takes another big leap forward this year as a passer, and the Bengals take another big leap forward. He's going to be putting up stats, and someone has to catch them. And then when Joe Burrow has the 400-yard, 4-touchdown game, someone else is putting up a spike week on his offense. And so correlating those things is how you get the big scoring weeks, and you need the big scoring weeks along with obviously the big scoring season, but the weeks make up the full season, right? And so you want to kind of correlate those things. And of course, there goes Tyler Boyd at 85th overall to the 112. So we may be looking at old Hayden Hurst on this team later. Maybe a little Hayden Hurst and some Chris Evans at the back of this draft. I don't mind where we're sitting at both running back and wide receiver. I definitely have a guy here I'm hoping falls to me. There goes Tom Brady. I'm taking another swing on a high upside rookie wide receiver, Sky Moore, trying not to leave drafts without Chiefs, if at all possible. Super, super bullish on the Chiefs. Sky Moore being, maybe the big super home run swing of the Chiefs wide receivers. I know some people would say Juju is that. I kind of tend to think that Juju could be great. I think that if I were to bet on one of the Chiefs wide receivers being a superstar, I would bet it's Sky Moore. Like, who has the Justin Jefferson season? I would bet on Sky Moore, not Juju. I think Juju has a better chance of being like really good. And Sky Moore has again, like we talked about at the top, and like Harbs mentioned, the wide range of outcomes is Sky. I mean, he could be the 4th wide receiver. I don't think that's the case, but he could be the 4th wide receiver and not see all too many targets, which is, again, back to the projections thing. Like, that's the hardest part about the projections is you have the Chiefs. You have not only Travis Kelce, but you have 4 wide receivers. 3 of them are new to the team. They're replacing Tyreek Hill and a bunch of bums, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, etc. And so you can project, honestly, we can do all our best to try to project that. And I think most people that have done these projections are thinking about it very smartly, and it makes tons of sense. But we're just guessing. It's if you come from my business background, it'd be called a swag, right? A smart, wise ass guess. That's all we're doing. We're using logic to build the projection, but it's just a guess. It's 100% a guess. And so that's the hardest part about a lot of these projections. We do have some situations where we can fairly confidently project, but most, especially this year for this 2022 season, like, dude, you tell me who's going to lead the Chiefs wide receivers in targets. someone will say, "Oh, well, it's Juju." Yeah, but we haven't even seen this. We've never seen this offense before. Tell me about the Broncos now that they have Russell Wilson and not Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. What's it going to look like with Devontae Adams in Vegas? We can put logic to it, but we're just guessing. We're totally guessing. And so that's why I try to kind of very at the top, back to what Harbs was saying. I'm trying to just lean into the uncertainty. Ooh. I can't believe I'm going to say that I think it's Damian Harris. Even in full point PPR, Harris over. No, I just went through the wide range of outcomes and full point PPR and such. I have to take the second round rookie on the Buffalo Bills. I cannot possibly take Damian Harris on the full point PPR site, but maybe he'll come back to me. Need a little running back love. CPAT, don't hate that CPAT pick there. What I should have done though is use my own tools, use the Spike Week tools that we have here, and you see Harris is pretty interesting because A, I don't have very much of him, and B, the time I did take him was at a better so now I'd be getting nice cost relative to my ADP of 88 on him when I did take him in this tournament, but he correlates 8 different times throughout the course of the season with one of my players. It's him or Derek Carr, but I do think I am going to take just this falling Damian Harris. The other interesting thing about Damian Harris is that they've talked about there being a little bit of a potential for, it's a different offense, right? This isn't the Josh McDaniels offense. This isn't quite the same as the old school Patriots. It's Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, which has its own issues. If you've been following camp, the Patriots do not look very good. But let's see if I can. Sorry, I was trying to adjust the board a little bit. But anyway, but they've talked about Damian Harris and Ramondre being a little bit more like the Javonte and Melvin situation, and kind of like what I think Green Bay will do a little bit more. Green Bay now will do some of the Aaron Jones plays third down, AJ Dillon plays early down, but it's a little more of my turn, your turn, where they're both. What in the hell is going on here? Where they're both getting the full role when they're out there, right? Damian Harris takes a series, Ramondre takes a series. Now, Ty Montgomery or someone like that is I don't want to say likely, is going to be a factor, but they've discussed, right, Ramondre and Damian Harris getting a little bit more of a fuller role, which in turn does create a little bit wider range of outcomes for someone like Damian Harris, who we've kind of pigeonholed into this certain archetype of a back. And I get that 100%. He's kind of earned that hole he's been pigeonholed, that pigeonholing. But I think he's interesting. He's the perfect player of, as you saw there, I hadn't been taking him, and I took him at 88th overall or whatever on like one team, basically. One to two teams, I took Damian Harris back at that old cost. Now the market has like completely sunk him, right? Look where Ramondre goes. If I scroll up, Ramondre went here, 94th overall, and Damian Harris goes 112. So we're talking 2 rounds. I did a draft the other night. This was on Underdog, but Damian Harris went almost 30 picks. He actually went, almost 30 picks after Ramondre. And so we've kind of widened this gap so much that they're both going to have some kind of a role, and you still always have the value of what if something happens to Ramondre. And I think that's the big part about the range of outcomes again, where it's like we just can't ever accurately predict this stuff, right? Who would have said Sony Michel on the Rams would be a smash down the? I mean, he wasn't even on the Rams last year, right? And then he's the guy that's just crushing down the stretch. Also have another guy here who I'm pretty excited for. Would be nice to get. I'm gonna stack up Tua with, I guess I should double check my bye weeks, right? Let me pull up my roster. Yeah, Burrow by week 10. Tua by week 11. That is another thing about drafters that is, I think, probably actually underutilized because it has become more of a thing where we don't care very much about bye weeks on the other sites because, you just kind of let it play out over the course of the season. If you have one down week because of some bye weeks, theoretically, then you're supercharged for every other week. And while we don't want to necessarily be punting off quarterback scoring weeks on drafters, we really don't want to be like sacrificing any weeks too much with the buys. And I even like you see all my running backs, it's only 3 of them, but the running backs are all on different buys, right? The wide receivers are almost all on different buys. Sky and Keenan are on the same buy. And I'm not saying I'm going out of my way to differentiate all those buys, but I think it's something that is a consideration, is at least a consideration on drafters. And I think there's probably at least probably smarter people than myself, but I think there's probably really, 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 here's where I'm going to take Alexander Madison, who also has interestingly kind of fallen. But I think that there would be like a really useful exercise on drafters to go through and kind of figure out just what the perfect way to kind of optimize your team for buys. I know that there's a he's in this draft updog here at the 101 who is also almost maxed this contest out, does some interesting stuff with he is in our Spike Week Discord. He's a killer. He got second, I believe, in this drafters tournament, the main drafters tournament last year, and he won last year we did a giveaway, a partnership with drafters, and he won that, but does a schedule based kind of matching teams and players together over the course of the schedule, right? And so obviously that also accounts for bye weeks, and I think that's extremely fascinating for the drafters format, where again, you don't want to like go crazy because like last year, you want JT, Cooper Kupp, Mark Andrews, right? You want the league winners. So you're not going out of your way necessarily to not draft certain combinations of players like that, but there are ways also still to optimize your combinations of players based on their bye weeks, based on their matchups. And I think that's probably like the next wave of this. And it's actually something I think I want to work on for what we're doing next year. But yeah, exactly. Intuitively, it feels like the bye weeks make sense as a tiebreaker for sure. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. I think there's probably some cool stuff that we could try to do with the bye weeks on drafters, but I wanted to touch on it because I really do think it's like most people, because drafters is just not quite as big as say underdog, will bring their underdog mindset, not necessarily with like, the the week 17 and playoff stuff is all silly. But most people will bring their mindset from underdog, just generally speaking. And the bye weeks is probably the spot where the mindset rolls over and it just, you just don't ever even think about it because the other sites that you draft on and stuff, right? It's like if you play always on DraftKings for DFS. All right, hold on. Sorry. Let's focus. Romeo Dobbs, Hunter Henry, Robbie Anderson. I am going to start to need to get a little bit of tight end love here. Christian Watson, I don't think I can do Isaiah Pacheco. I've been buying back some more Robbie Anderson. And so I'm down for some Robbie here. I'm a sucker. Robbie's going to fail. He's going to like lose his job to Rashard Higgins or something. And I'm going to be wondering, I'm going to be Lucy with the football with Robbie Anderson again. But I just seriously cannot get over the fact that the dude had 110 targets last year. We were drafting him much higher than this. Was an air yards god and never got there. And people have just written him off into the 150s and 160s of drafts. I can't get over it. And he's going to lose me money again. There's not a doubt about it. So as it stands right now, you can see here, I have 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 7 wide receivers, and no tight ends through 13 rounds. And oof. Oh God. I can't believe I'm going to take Noah Fant again. Here we are. Given into the, I was really kind of hoping that an Njoku or a Henry would come back to me, but Fant is, I guess I would put Higbee in that tier as well, but Fant is kind of the last of a tier, him and Higbee there. And I just prefer Fant to Higbee just because the talent is there. But I know I'm gonna need to draft 3 tight ends on this team, right? Because I just don't have enough firepower to get away with 2, starting with a Noah Fant or something. So I would like to take like the swing. Noah Fant is the former first round pick, superstar athlete, at least. The situation is really terrible, but again, to the range of outcomes, think, what if it is a little bit better, and it's really just him and Lockett and Metcalf? And in full point PPR, if they're really going to get their ass kicked every single week, the Seahawks are going to lose, most games. They're not going to be able to just sit there and establish it. We're very worried about their pass rate. Aren't you worried? I'm worried about their pass rate. But at this cost, at the tight end position, with this level of talent, you could see ways where we look back like, what were we doing with Noah Fant in the 14th, 15th round? It doesn't make a lot of sense. He does. I draft Robbie too, but doesn't he give you such Brashad Perriman vibes? Yeah, I don't think he gives me like I'm going to get cut vibes, but if he literally were to get cut, would I be totally shocked? Probably not totally shocked. I think I might cry into my cereal the next morning for breakfast, but I don't think I would be totally shocked if he were to get cut. Pretty surprised though. And I think it's kind of like the Steelers. People will make the case with the Steelers, now that they have Pickett and or Trubisky. Like, it can't be worse than Big Ben, right? Like, why is everybody buying George Pickens besides just the hype? Why are we still drafting Deontay? Why are we still drafting Claypool? Why is Najee Harris a first, a 1-2 turn pick, etc.? Because it can't be worse, right? Okay, now this one falls back to me. This worked out at least this one worked out fairly well. I get Hayden Hurst to stack with my Joe Burrow, so I have a Tua to Tyreek stack, and then we Joe Burrow to Hayden Hurst. Not the sexiest stack you've ever had, but we'll take it. We'll take it. The receivers are going to be good, but it's going to be spread around, right? And Hayden Hurst is the guy who is going to pull a better than CJ Uzoma season out of him. Double-digit touchdowns for Hayden Hurst, which kind of works when you think about it from a late round tight end team. I still would probably prefer to have at least one of the wide receivers with Burrow. But when you think about, what do I need from a late round tight end team? I need this crazy outlier performance from 1 or 2 of these late round tight ends. So if I correlate it with my early elite quarterback, especially a passing one in Joe Burrow, it kind of makes sense to go this route. I am a little bit hurting at running back here, which is lovely because we're going to take Jerick McKinnon, currently my favorite Chiefs running back to draft. It's kind of bizarre that Pacheco got pushed so far up across every platform, really. And McKinnon is starting to rise up a little bit, I think. But McKinnon is like also a lock for the roster and is maybe a lock for passing downs, or certainly going to get some passing down work. And we saw when he gets just a generally a little bit more higher portion of the work last year and in the playoff run, he's an awesome fantasy asset. And so it just feels like a free scratch off lottery ticket with probably some value anyway. And on a PPR site in the 180s, pretty in on Jerick McKinnon. Also think he's an awesome fit on this team, which, as you see, is Joe Burrow, Tua, James Conner as an anchor wide receiver, James Cook, Damian Harris, Alexander Madison, Jerick McKinnon, and Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Elijah Moore, Drake London, Sky Moore, Robbie Anderson, Noah Fant, and Hayden Hurst. Quarterbacks start to fly off the board. You get into these late rounds, and good Lord, it's bad. It's so bad. Might start to queue up some guys, queue up a few guys here. I'm back buying David Bell. Shocker for anybody that knows me. I will say I'm not going to take him because I took Burrow and Tua, but you see Marcus Mariota here. Obviously, he's green because I have Drake London, but he's a player who this is just an absolute steal in my opinion on drafters. The concerns, and there he goes, of course, but the concerns. Who just took Mariota? Dorado. Shout out to you. The concerns with Marcus Mariota are that he's not going to keep this job for the entire season, right? On drafters, why do we give a shit about that? We don't care. We don't care about that. Ooh, this is bad. I do think I'm going to take Chris Evans because if he gets the passing down work, which remains to be seen, he still looks like he might be the third back there. But in terms of an upside bet, he's just so much more explosive than Samaje Perine. And so kind of correlating that with the Burrow thing, right? If something happens to Mixon, maybe they even throw more and Evans gets involved that way. Now I've got this kind of weird Bengal stack where Burrow and maybe some outlier situation is elevating Chris Evans and Hayden Hurst. So we're sitting at 2-6-7-2. So we got 3 picks to go. Pretty flexible here. I don't need any more running backs necessarily. I'm definitely going to need another tight end. I don't love the guys here. I am going to take one more running back, actually. Let me look at this really fast. 10 seconds. I just hate these wide receivers. So that's what we're going to do. I'm in on Amir Abdullah. And when you draft this, this is like kind of a 0 RB team, and I have 2 elite quarterbacks, so I'm pretty cool with and Sky Moore as my wide receiver 6. Like I'm pretty comfortable being a little bit lighter at wide receiver than I would normally be, and I just love what you get with these pass catching backs. I think Amir Abdullah is like kind of sneaky valuable, particularly on the PPR sites. Like think James White with him basically is kind of what it is. Yeah. Anchor Connor is like a hybrid between an anchor and a 0 RB team, right? That's like kind of what you saw with what I did here. Took a little bit of upside shots, but a lot of pass catching. James Cook, pass catcher, 2nd round pick. Damian Harris, definitely not a pass catcher, but scooping a little bit of falling value with him. Alexander Madison, obviously contingent bet. McKinnon, pass catcher, but Chiefs upside. Evans, pass catcher, but Bengals upside, correlates with my team. And then Amir Abdullah, who I think is really just kind of James White, but like more athletic even. I'm not saying he's a better necessarily football player, but like has a little more juice. James White on steroids, if you will. So pretty into all of that. And I'm banking on the Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, strong seasons with Elijah Moore, Drake London, Sky Moore breakouts. And then we tacked on our boy Robbie. And then I need to hit, on one of these tight ends. I'll be taking another tight end and another wide receiver. I'm pretty into this. I'm pretty into this team. Now I don't care if you guys snipe any of my guys. Let's take a look at tight end. What's the bye week sitch looking like? 10 and 11. Okay, I don't love. I can wait on the tight ends. I'm also in on my guy Danny Gray. No, you know what we're gonna do here? We're gonna take Bryan Edwards. Bryan Edwards as my final wide receiver. I made a little bit of a bet on London, right? And so they're not technically, truly positively correlated. There's only one football. They can't both catch the ball. They both can't catch touchdowns on the same play. But if the Falcons elevate to where Drake London is worth a 6th-round pick and Bryan Edwards is playing every snap on the outside, I think he'll be valuable. Now it's tight end time. Trey McBride went. Damn it. I'm probably going to take one of my guys here that nobody ever takes. Get unique, as they would say, with Kylen Granson. Kylen Granson is kind of one of my pets of the year. Totally, probably mostly useless, but he's the pass catching tight end for the Colts. And everybody's kind of looking at the Colts like there has to be something here, right? Jonathan Taylor is obviously the man, and then Hines is kind of the pass catching running back. But Michael Pittman, is definitely going to be the target leader. But after that, it's like Alec Pierce is probably not going to demand a high target share. Paris Campbell, who knows? Ashton Doolin, like what? And Mo Alley-Cox, they've continued to prove that he's just a little bit more of a blocker. He's of course going to catch some passes, but I think Granson is the receiving tight end here in this room, and no one ever takes him. And so it's like you get a little bit of added benefit to the fact that if he is this like valuable late round pass catching tight end, you're getting points from someone that nobody else is getting. There's not quite as much value in that on drafters, but there's still a little bit of value. I think back to remember when Jordan Reed was on what was then the Washington Redskins and comes out of nowhere as an 18th round pick, undrafted player, whatever, to, I think it was he the tight end 1 or one of the top tight ends, if not the tight end 1, right? Or think Dalton Schultz last year. Nobody, almost nobody. I'm not saying nobody, because I'm sure probably some of you sickos that are sitting in the chat here were drafting Dalton Schultz. But if you drafted Dalton Schultz last year, you're just getting so much value out of that guy, and there's no one else getting it. If you draft the same late round tight ends that everybody else is drafting, even when you hit, there are thousands of other teams that are still hitting on that guy. And so again, it's not as valuable here where you have the playoff weeks to navigate, but it is interesting, right? It is interesting. So we'll run down the team here. If anybody is in the chat that wants me to take a look, we can all chat through your team. More than happy. But mine, starting out of the 109 in this, of course, wide receiver heavy room, because that's what happens. Any room, any stream I do, you shitheads. Yeah, I was literally on the clock in the 3rd round, and I'm like, where is Gabe? And I see there's Updog over here picking from the 101. Takes freaking DJ Moore and Gabe at the 2-3 turn. I couldn't believe it. Again, for anybody that doesn't know me, Gabe Davis that's my guy this year. The chips are in the middle on Gabe Davis. If it doesn't work, we're just going to move on to 2023. If Gabe is not the guy, I might be looking for new employment. So if anybody, I'll get my resume together. If anybody, needs their house vacuumed or something, that's what I'll be looking to do next year if Gabe Davis sucks. But anyway, we started out of the 109 with Devontae Adams, because every sick person in front of me was taking wide receivers, didn't want to get locked out there. Took Tyreek Hill in the 2nd round. Didn't touch a ton on it. We'll hit on it really quickly right here with Tyreek. Is just the market is completely doubting the Dolphins. I mean, not like completely doubting, right? Tyreek is a 2nd round pick. Waddle's a 3rd, 4th round pick or so. But we have Mike McDaniel moving over, who everybody, believes is smart. We have some of the honestly sickest weapons plus offensive line upgrades on this. They got one of the best left tackles in Teron Armstead. They got Connor Williams from Dallas, who I bet Dallas wishes they had right about now with the Tyron Smith injury, and upgraded their offensive line, which was the worst in the league last year, and just added Tyreek, who is basically the most dynamic, fear-inducing weapon in football. Added him to Jalen Waddle, who was already proving to be elite as a rookie. We'll see what happens with Mike Gesicki, but he's still around as a talented receiver. And then also added Cedric Wilson, added Eric Ezukama, even if you want to really get your hand in the dirt, in the 4th round. Added Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, home run hitter in the backfield. And so how come no one's like excited about the Dolphins offense? It's because Tua. Everybody has buried Tua. We said, nope, arm's not strong enough, right? Can't do it anymore. This guy, as a freshman at Alabama, came in and stole Jalen Hurts' job and led the team to a national championship against Georgia. Came in and won them that game because Jalen Hurts, who is now the Eagles quarterback, right? And Jalen Hurts had to transfer because Tua made this dude transfer. All Tua did was light up college football until he had the serious hip injury. Maybe that hip thing has ruined him, right? Maybe he's just not the athlete anymore. Maybe he doesn't have the arm strength or whatever. But for the longest stretch during college, he was the next number 1 overall pick. It was tank for Tua. If anybody remembers, like there was a campaign from the time he was from that national championship game, basically when he was 18 years old, it was tank for Tua. Who's going to get Tua? Then Joe Burrow at LSU takes this crazy leap and Tua gets hurt, and Tua is the number 5 overall pick. Right. So we're still talking about a top 5 pick. He had kind of a shaky start. It was an awkward way to start his career. Right. Ryan Fitzpatrick is playing well and winning games, and they decide to bench him for Tua, which I think all this has just left a sour taste in the mouths of drafters. He doesn't have the absolute world's strongest arm. And so the fact they had this crappy offensive line and bad weapons, dude. This dude is playing with Preston Williams, like Mac Hollins, these like scrubs. Right? Albert Wilson, he's throwing to Durham Smythe, and everyone has held all this against Tua. Now there are no concerns anymore. Offensive line's better, coach is better, superstar talents. And so when all that stuff is erased, the market is, I think, too low on the Dolphins. And maybe Tua will not be that guy. Maybe he stinks. Maybe he can't get it done even with Tyreek and good coaching and Waddle, etc. But when everybody else believes that's already the case, I'm buying. So I'm really trying to get a lot more Tyreek and Waddle and Edmonds and the running backs, everything into my portfolio. So pretty excited about this one. Joe Burrow and Tua with stacked up. Burrow with Hayden Hurst and Chris Evans, kind of a funny stack. And Tua, obviously, with the aforementioned Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams in the 1st round, loaded up on wide receivers, Keenan Allen, Elijah Moore, Drake London, Sky Moore, and kind of caught the falling knife in James Conner in the 4th round as my anchor running back. Talked about him and why I like him better here on drafters, and then loaded up on kind of some pass catching plus contingent value running backs, mainly on awesome offenses, right? James Cook, 2nd round rookie pass catcher. Damian Harris, not. Madison, McKinnon, Evans, Amir Abdullah, and then rounded out with some late round tight ends, Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst, and Kylan Granson. I will not stand for the slander, updog, of Tua being left-handed. I am left-handed, and I played quarterback in high school. I was also not a very good passer, and I converted to running back. If that tells you anything about how I was as a passer, but I will not stand for the left-handed slander. I appreciate you guys joining me. This is funny. I know Rob hates Brian Edwards. And also is a Patriots fan, so you can't listen to anything he says. Thank you guys for joining me. If you have not signed up for drafters, watch this. Maybe got a little bit of a hankering. Promo code Grinders or promo code Spike. Both will work for 100% deposit bonus up to $100. New users, obviously. New users. Also over at Spike Week, we have those draft overlays that you saw. We have tons of different tools and everything for best ball players to check out. We'll also be doing some more NFL stuff here at RotoGrinders, myself included, getting ready for week 1, maybe a little more best ball stuff, all sorts of fun stuff coming. And my recommendation is to chase. If I'm going to invest in best ball, I want to dip my toes in the contest that's got $250,000 to first place and is going to get like 60 or 70% full. I think that's a good one to go ahead and invest in. So if you're hanging around this afternoon, I'll be drafting again on drafters. But for now, I'm Erik Beimfohr for my dogs who are actually sleeping for once. Anybody that's watched me know that doesn't happen very often. They're actually sleeping during the show for me and my dogs. For Sosa, back on the 1s and 2s. We will catch you guys next time.